Back here at 6.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the widespread apprehension about and anticipation of a ground war between Iraq and the Allied coalition. The commander of British forces in the Gulf said today that such a war is inevitable. The French President, Francois Mitterrand, goes even further and says sometime in the next 3 weeks. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Defense leave for Saudi Arabia tonight to discuss a land war with the overall commander of Allied forces, General Norman Schwarzkopf, who is playing his cards very close to his chest. ABC's Sam Donaldson spent the day with him.
General Schwarzkopf spent most of the day in a forward area near the Saudi Arabian border, behind which Iraqi forces wait. This tank unit is about 10 miles from the border. General Schwarzkopf has come here today to check the morale of his troops and see whether they're ready to go if that's necessary. The troops seemed up and ready to go. And Schwarzkopf took issue with the report that Allied bombing has not substantially reduced the fighting ability of Iraq's elite Republican Guard.
Oh, I think we've been very effective. I think we've done as much as we thought we'd do to this point, and probably more.
Some Pentagon official, unnamed, quoted in the New York Times as saying it only reduced it by about 10%.
Yeah, well, it's amazing how some of these unnamed Pentagon officials get their information all the way back in Washington versus what we have over here where the war is going on.
So that guy was wrong?
I would say he's wrong, yes.
Are you reaching a point where many of the Republican Guard units could be called combat ineffective?
I wouldn't say they're combat ineffective, but I would certainly say they're seriously damaged.
Schwarzkopf conferred today with some of his forward commanders in preparation for sitting down with Secretary Cheney and Joint Chiefs Chairman Powell over the weekend. He wouldn't disclose what his recommendations for a land war timetable will be, but he does not sound like a man ready to rush into one. Do you think a ground war can be avoided? Can air power do it by itself?
I don't know. I think it's still too early to tell. I think got to wait and see.
Schwarzkopf will make a recommendation, but of course only the president will make the final decision. Peter?
Sam, did the general talk at all about how he might fight such a war if it does begin?
Yes, he did. In our interview, of course, he didn't give us an order of battle, but he talked about the tactics. He said he'd hit them hard, he'd not stop, he'd minimize casualties by keeping on, and he said it would be stupid to hit them frontally, which certainly suggests some sort of end around.
How does he not stop if the Iraqis have put together the defenses they're supposedly world famous for?
Well, I asked him whether he thought there'd be lots of casualties, and he said he couldn't say. It would depend on whether they fought. He thinks some units will fight and some won't. Okay, Sam, thanks very much. Sam Donaldson in Saudi Arabia later this evening on Primetime Live. There will be an even fuller report on Sam's day with General Schwarzkopf, and that starts at 10/9 Central Time. Well, it certainly doesn't make much sense in any war to telegraph your intentions, which makes the general's reticence understandable. On the other hand, the British commander in the region seems to think that the obvious is the obvious. ABC's Bill Redeker is in Saudi Arabia.
The British called it a final dress rehearsal for a land war. More than 20,000 soldiers and 3,000 tanks and other armored vehicles staged what they called the largest ground assault exercise since World War II. The commander of British forces has no doubt the rehearsal is necessary.
I believe the land war is inevitable, yes. I believe we're dealing with a man who uses human life as a currency to buy what he wants to achieve in this world. And therefore, regardless of what any of his generals may see as being inevitable consequences of a land war, I believe he'll press ahead with it.
The general, who meets with American commanders twice a day, seemed to provide some clues on the battle and its timing. He said it would be preceded by massive, unrelenting air attacks in what he called the weeks ahead.
Roger, good hit on that.
American military sources say the air campaign is now focused on cutting off roads, bridges, and supply convoys, isolating the battlefield. The Iraqis are responding with increased anti-aircraft fire. This A-10 tank killer was hit and returned to base with one wing badly damaged. Apache attack helicopters, which would be used in an air-land battle, have stepped up their training this week, firing for the first time $30,000 Hellfire anti-tank missiles.
While there is public disagreement about whether a land battle is inevitable, all of the signs on the ground here indicate the Allies are preparing for just that. Bill Redeker, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
Well, President Bush says he will make the decision whether and when to begin the war on the ground, but to do it, he will rely very heavily on the advice of Secretary Cheney and Chairman Powell, as you heard in Sam Donaldson's report. They, in turn, were getting advice today on Capitol Hill. Here's ABC's John McWethy.
Before they headed off to the Persian Gulf this afternoon, Defense Secretary Cheney and Joint Chiefs Chairman Powell spent the morning listening to concerns from various members of Congress about rushing into a ground war.
Do not go forward with this escalation. Every single feeling that I have in my body is frightening, ominous, and foreboding.
And I would just encourage you not to in any way prematurely ask America's children to walk across that sand.
We are well aware of the responsibility we bear for the conduct of the conflict. I know that it weighs very heavily on the mind of the President, certainly on General Powell and myself.
Though the Gulf was clearly their top concern today, the Soviet Union was also on their minds. Negotiations on arms-controlled treaties have slowed almost to a halt, and the overall assessment is the most pessimistic yet.
I think that the economic situation in the Soviet Union today is as bleak as it has been perhaps in the last 50 years since the end of World War II. And there is now no doubt but what the Soviet economy is collapsing, that means increased unrest, perhaps even of civil war in the Soviet Union.
But the main focus on Capitol Hill today was still the Gulf. In a Senate hearing, Secretary Baker criticized Jordan's King Hussein for accusing the U.S. of trying to destroy Iraq. Baker said that is untrue and that King Hussein is now on the wrong side. This evening, the State Department announced it is reviewing the $80 million in U.S. aid to Jordan. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
In a moment, the people of Baghdad adjusting to war, but very angry. Questions of quality and leadership in training National Guard combat troops. And in the other news, the IRA's mortar attack on the heart of the British government.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Theragram M.
Theragram wants to know. Changed my life. Not much. With Theragram M, multivitamins with minerals, fine-tuned for the way you live.
Call me irresponsible.
The Subaru Legacy with full-time four-wheel drive and anti-lock brakes. Since the next guy is capable of almost anything, shouldn't the same be true of your next car?
Understand you got yourselves a new house.
Well, a not so new house.
That's why Ace is the place for us.
Kwikset deadbolt or entry locks are only $7.44 each. The O-Cedar Power Strip Sponge Mop is $3.99 after rebate.
Old house or new, there's only one thing to do.
Ask Ace.
In the war today, U.S. jets shot down 2 more Iraqi planes, apparently trying to escape to Iran. Military commanders say Iraq has placed anti-aircraft guns on rooftops in residential neighborhoods. No visual evidence of it yet. U.S. planes are not attacking them yet. And the Iraqis say that 22 more civilians died in air raids overnight and that more of their neighborhoods have been hit. Here's ABC's John Donovan.
These latest pictures from Baghdad continue to show damage to what the Iraqis call civilian targets, like this bridge across the Tigris River. They also suggest that the capital is adjusting to war. This man says many residents leave for the night, that most of his family has moved. The lines for ration bread are longer than ever, but on this one at least, people seem resigned to waiting. And when the air raid sirens went off, there was no panic in this street, as though people have learned when the danger is near or far. But there is anger, most directed at George Bush.
Well, he said yesterday he did not want to attack civilian targets or harm the Iraqi people. Do you believe him?
No, I don't believe him. It's a lie. It's a lie. Mr. Bush is a lie.
Meanwhile, in the north of Jordan, evidence of Jordanians' anger with Saudi Arabia. At least 40 trucks carrying food to Saudi Arabia were attacked here yesterday by Jordanians, who are bitter at the Saudis' refusal to sell them oil. Today, Jordan reportedly promised a police escort for the trucks, whose cargo and drivers come from Syria and Turkey. Jordanians are angry about a lot of things: their wrecked economy, their isolation from Western countries with whom they were friends for decades. Above all, they are angry with the United States. Every day that the war continues, more people here are convinced that America wants to beat down the Arabs. John Donovan, ABC News, Amman.
An American citizen was shot and killed today in the Turkish city of Adana. He was a civilian accountant working at the Incirlik Air Base, which is used by U.S. planes for air raids against Iraq. A group called the Turkish Revolutionary Left has claimed responsibility. In London today, a reminder that the Gulf War is not the only war. If you believe their claim, the Irish Republican Army took their war with the British to the British Prime Minister's back door, literally, in broad daylight. It was the closest thing since a bomb exploded near former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's room in a Brighton hotel 7 years ago. ABC's Barry Dunsmore is in London.
The British cabinet had just arrived at the Prime Minister's residence to discuss developments in the Gulf War. Moments later, a mortar hit in the back garden. The reverberation shook the front door and shattered the cabinet room windows. Only 200 yards away, a white van with a hole cut in its roof was in flames. Police say 3 mortar rounds had been launched from the van. The fire was caused by a booby trap device. 2 men were seen running away just before the explosions. The audacity of the attack has shocked Londoners. The van evidently stopped for several minutes just outside the Ministry of Defence on Whitehall. This is a public thoroughfare which runs through the heart of the British political establishment. The home of the Prime Minister at 10 Downing Street is just off Whitehall. Besides the mortar shell in the garden, 2 other mortars hit close to the Foreign Ministry just across the street. The British Parliament is only another few hundred yards away. The terrorists came within just a few feet of succeeding in what Prime Minister Major said was their goal.
A deliberate attempt this morning both to kill the cabinet and to do damage to our democratic system of government. It failed, and we rightly treat them with contempt.
Whatever the coincidence with terrorist threats by Iraq, British officials denied any linkage.
Can I say straight away that this is the work of the Irish Republican terrorist groups, and you should discount from your minds any connection whatsoever with any Arab terrorist organization.
As discouraging as it is that the IRA has once again almost taken out the British cabinet, there is actually some relief in this capital tonight that it was the IRA which was apparently responsible, and not the Iraqis. Barry Dunsmore, ABC News, London.
In their claim today, the IRA said so long as the British control Northern Ireland, the British cabinet will be forced to meet in bunkers. We'll be back in just a moment.
Mary Brodie won't feel the tiny lump in her breast for another 2 years, but she'll discover it tomorrow after her first mammogram, thanks in part to a new X-ray film created by DuPont that makes it safer to start mammography early. And for Mary, early detection means a 2-year head start on the rest of her life. At DuPont, we make the things that make a difference.
This good boy shares what he has with the rest of his class. This bad boy doesn't. There's only one Jeep Cherokee Sport.
Save $700 on new 1991 Jeep Cherokees.
Over 10 years ago in restaurants across America, one instant coffee did something no other instant has ever done.
If this is instant, we just bought ourselves another coffee.
We've never had instant coffee this good.
People who thought they were drinking fresh brewed coffee were secretly switched to Folgers Crystals. Real people, not actors.
I mean, it just tastes like it's been brewed. This would wake me up.
Try it yourself. Write to this address and get a free jar of Folgers Crystals, the only instant that dares to make believers out of fresh brewed coffee drinkers.
I'll drink to that.
2 reports tonight about civilian soldiers, their training, and the war. Out of 500,000 American troops in the Gulf, about 75,000 are reservists, and most of those in support roles, not combat. The combat reserves are in training, and not all is well. First, morale problems at Fort Hood, Texas, where more than 60 Louisiana National Guard troops went AWOL this week, absent without leave. Here's ABC's Charlie Murphy.
Louisiana Guardsmen have been in intensive training since they went on active duty in December.
Even though it was only training, they complained about low morale, poor leadership, and long hours without a break. So dozens of them packed up and went back to Louisiana without leave to spend a few days with their families.
We're just stressed out, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Morale's real low.
It's not a matter of like a revolt or anything. All we want is just a little bit of time out to ourselves.
The men said their company commander, a deputy sheriff in Shreveport in civilian life, had set a poor example of leadership. While they trained in tanks, they said he went hunting.
He come up one day, we were broke down out there, asked us, y'all seen any deer around here? No.
Another soldier who did not go AWOL said the Guard was poorly trained before it was called up.
The National Guard wasn't prepared for this. They weren't prepared at all. A lot of these guys, a lot of the training that's supposedly going on has just been, done in the office. They say, okay, all these guys had all these classes, they did all this stuff, and it actually hadn't been going on.
Some of those who had gone AWOL are already coming back to Fort Hood. The brigade commander didn't say what punishment, if any, they faced. He defended the training program.
The training that we're doing is very intensive, very difficult, physically demanding, stressful training. But that's what combat's like.
The general said he'll look into their complaints, but he said he was embarrassed by the whole business. Charles Murphy, ABC News, Dallas.
More on the Guard and this question of readiness. The chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Les Aspin, has said the Gulf War would provide a laboratory test of whether reserve units are fully capable of combat. As ABC's Dennis Chout reports, the 1st National Guard Brigade called to active combat duty is still a long way from the battlefield.
For years, the Pentagon has insisted that combat reserves would be ready for the front lines within several weeks of being activated. Georgia's 48th Brigade was called up at the end of November, but is still training in California. Pentagon officials say there's been no decision about whether the soldiers of the 48th will go to the Gulf, but they're scheduled for more training until at least April. Army officials in California have told the Guardsmen they cannot handle their tanks and guns well enough, and their command staff is inefficient. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff told Congress today he doubted whether reservists get enough practice in their spare time to go into combat.
I think we have to examine this very objectively with respect to those units and come out with the right answer as to what we actually can expect a large combat unit such as that to be able to accomplish in 39 days of training.
The issue is critical because half of the Army's combat troops are reservists. The Army has spent $10 billion on training and equipment for them.
The idea was that having fewer full-time soldiers would leave more money for weapon systems. While some reserves have gone to the Gulf, the Pentagon's reliance on part-time soldiers is sure to be called into question if its big combat reserve brigades never do any more than practice. Dennis Trout, ABC News, the Pentagon.
When we come back, some of the other news, the bad financial news at Chrysler.
I was an IRS agent for 24 years. You can imagine, people weren't very happy to see me coming. I stopped working for them about 5 years ago. Now I'm a member of AARP, and I volunteer to help people do their taxes through the AARP Tax Aid Program. And you know, I hear something I thought I never would.
Boy, am I glad to see you.
AARP, making a difference.
Who guarantees overnight air delivery before 10:30 to the most people coast to coast? Who did you think?
Flu update. The Centers for Disease Control report. 3 highly contagious flu strains, and they're spreading unchecked. Millions will be stricken. What will you do? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Theraflu is hot liquid medicine. Strong therapy for flu symptoms. Hot liquid therapy that works fast. What will you do when you get the flu? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Strong therapy for flu symptoms.
Who guarantees overnight air delivery before 10:30 to more businesses than anyone else in the business? Who did you think?
There's another indication today of major trouble in the auto industry. The Chrysler Corporation is the first of the big three car makers to announce its annual earnings for all of 1990, and they were down 81% from the previous year. They only made $68 million. Here's ABC's Stephen Ogg.
Chrysler Corporation eked out a small $31 million profit during the final 3 months of last year. But the profit came from lending money to people so they could buy new vehicles. Chrysler actually lost money making and selling cars and trucks. The losses would have been even worse but for a cost reduction program through which Chrysler saved $1.5 billion by layoffs and closing a couple of assembly plants. Chrysler sold fewer vehicles than it did in 1989, and it needed big rebates to do even that. Chairman Lee Iacocca says the first quarter of this year may be worse.
I don't know how much punishment we still have to take in this business, but we're going to know only when it's over.
Auto analysts expect next week's results from Ford and GM to be worse.
Unlike Chrysler, I think that those companies will both show losses in the fourth quarter of the year, probably close to $2 billion combined.
American automobile executives are battening down, fearing the worst, and they see no meaningful upturn, at least till after the war is over. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials lost about 20 points today to close at 2810, and the trading was heavy. In a moment, some of the voices of dissent.
Did you know there are two types of bills? The kind everybody loves to get and the kind everybody hates to get. Now, if your small business is using another long-distance company, send us your last bill, switch to AT&T Pro Watts, and you'll save up to 1,000 of these bills. What's more, with Pro Watts, you'll be getting AT&T quality at an extremely competitive price. So call now, because you can never have too many bills. I mean these bills, not these bills. Up to $1,000 savings. Another AT&T advantage.
Take a look around me at a place like none on land. Sail away now, you'll find me. The world's at my command.
Of all the resorts in the world, one takes you to the great places of the world. Royal Caribbean, the grand resorts of the seven seas. Isn't it time you discovered them?
Oh, Caribbean, I've got the world.
Poison ivy, insect bites, rashes. Too many choices.
You only need one. Cordade.
Stop the itch and heal the rash with a brand doctors recommend most.
Present Arms.
Cordade, the only aid you need.
Do you have a cold?
Yes.
Here are two cold medicines. One relieves these 3 symptoms, this 9. Choose one.
Number 9. I have these 9 symptoms.
You chose Dristan over Sudafed. Try it.
Dristan definitely works.
Dristan relieves 9 tough cold symptoms.
A soldier's worst nightmare, mistakenly killing our own in the heat of battle. How families and the soldiers responsible cope with the truth. Prime time, tonight.
Finally here this evening, the peace movement, or the anti-war movement, as it is also called. With so much concern in the country about the bloody potential of a land war with Iraq, many of the organized anti-war groups in the country are calling for a ceasefire and a negotiated settlement to get the Iraqis out of Kuwait. Most every survey of public opinion tells us that Americans overwhelmingly support the war effort. Sometimes, because of that, those who have deeply held reasons for opposing the war have a hard time being heard. It did not take long for some very simple slogans to emerge.
We don't want a peace war. Peace is what we're marching for. Peace is what we're marching for.
The largest demonstration against the war so far was held on the second weekend of fighting.
War is not the way. War is a way of dehumanization. It is a way of disrespect and mistrust between nations.
More than 100,000 people took their grievances to Washington.
I'm here because I didn't think my voice could be heard any other way.
I don't think this war is going to solve the very real conflicts that exist in the Middle East. War is not a solution.
Peace! When you want it! Now!
They came from all over the country to say that as far as they were concerned, the war would cost lives needlessly. At every anti-war demonstration, they carry the flag high to make the point, they say, that American troops in the Gulf have their support. They object to the government policy which sent the troops there.
We want peace. We want life.
We don't want one other person being held captive or either brought back to us in body bags.
I come here today to remind America that life is not cheap, that the life of each and every soldier is priceless.
But as a parent and mother, I'm angry.
Many times at the forefront of dissent, there are families of soldiers and veterans of war.
No one will win, no matter who wins.
They are determined that dissent be regarded as patriotic.
It is American to protest. It is American to have the right to dissent. It is American to question one's government and one's government leaders.
The process of democracy goes beyond a vote. The process of democracy includes the right to dissent, the right to build movements.
Well, we've been meeting every other Thursday except when...
There may not be a mass movement yet, but there is dissent.
I very much doubt that the United States is going to withdraw its forces.
Many teach-ins, letter-writing campaigns.
In addition to this, there's like a regular march, like every...
A quiet effort in many places. There is no support for Saddam Hussein.
I don't like Hussein, but I'd like to see a decision made peacefully so people won't have to die.
We have a strong interracial coalition.
Some people opposed to the war believe the U.S. is wasting its economic assets in a foreign land while there are so many unresolved problems at home.
The cost of war is money that we feel is being taken from domestic development, domestic needs.
Your military buildup could have gone to provide housing, health care, money for AIDS. These are the true victims, Mr. Bush.
There are those who don't believe in the clients for whom America is fighting, Kuwait and Saudi Arabia.
It's not a war for democracy. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia certainly aren't that.
Peace now!
At this early point in the war, it is not possible to even guess what effect the peace movement will have in the longer run. It will depend in large measure on whether it's a long-running war.
When the issue really comes to a head and we start losing a lot of our boys and girls over there, then I think people are going to take a stand.
It is a time for Americans to examine their beliefs more carefully.
If we feel the war is wrong, then we must honestly represent that to our fellow citizens and put it out there on the table of this democracy.
That's our report on World News Tonight. We'll have the latest on the Gulf every hour on the hour and during prime time and Nightline. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
And now, the news continues with Channel 2 News at 6.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Ann Holt. In our news tonight, people living near the Hickman-Williamson County line believe a dog napper is working their area. One man says 25 dogs, nearly all of them purebreds, have disappeared, and the missing dogs are not a high priority for lawmen. As Channel 2's Laurie Quinlivan tells us, these people feel like they've lost an important part of their families.
The boy with the cap on is my son. He's the one that has raised the dog. We've got a tennis ball we throw, and he goes and gets the tennis ball and brings it back to you. He loves to play ball. And that is a toy, a stuffed toy that he's got a hold of and I've got a hold of, and we would pull. He loved to play, and that was taken at 4:30 in the morning, playing with my dog.
Joe Henson's dog Scooter disappeared 2 weeks ago, and Joe's been searching for him ever since.
I've been